Welcome back to part 6 of the K-Swap series on our Honda CR-Z. Spring weather is right around the corner, which means car season is almost here, and I would love to get this thing down on its own 4 wheels, running, fully powered and ready to go. So in this video, we're going to try and cover everything else I need to get the K-Swap up and running. We're going to look at axles, we're going to look at Immobilizer, we're going to get everything kind of put back together and started up for the first time, hopefully. And of course, we're also going to look at all the mistakes I may have made so far. We're going to check for fluid leaks, make sure nothing, blows out when we start it. So let's dive right in and start by getting the Civic exhaust header back on the engine. Okay, so if you left your exhaust header disconnected when you put the engine in, like I did, you can push it back up there in this space between the subframe and the oil pan on the passenger side. Plenty of room to get it up there. Just get the large exhaust outlet up there first and follow it up with the valve openings. I left mine disconnected for clearance reasons. That's not to say there isn't clearance. You just have to be extra careful lowering your engine in. Make sure you are cautious about what you're hitting. But let's go ahead and get that thrown on just for a test. Alright, so here's our Civic exhaust header, and I threw the heat shield on too, just with a couple bolts. As you can see, we got plenty of room. We're clearing our brake lines. We have space around our shifter cables here. And the issue is not so much fitting the Civic factory header, it's the rest of the exhaust. Again, that's going to be a whole separate video on its own. But for now, this should do just fine for a quick test fire. With that done, let's just take a fast look at some of the other stuff I finished. We got the air intake on, super simple, just a big cone filter, a couple fittings. There's our MAF sensor, a little eBay adapter. It's a different one from the last video. I ended up buying the wrong size, so. We got our oil filter in. We got our engine oil in. ECU bracket is done. Now you want some kind of block-off plate for the IMA hole in the trunk. I made my own, but Tuners does have an option as well. Shifter cable grommet, it's definitely not pretty, but as long as it seals well, it works for me. Got the battery terminals connected here. This is a 51R. I believe the stock CR-Z size is a 151R, but even in the fits I have, I've upgraded to this size just to get more cranking amps in the winter, and it is AGM as well, since this won't be driven super often. If you are replacing your clutch master cylinder, don't forget to do an adjustment. Make sure that's in the proper position. I also did throw on an OEM heat shield for the intermediate shaft here. I also got our coolant system filled up, and that is a good time to take a look at the first potential problem I may have. Okay, first potential problem is our lower radiator hose here. Now, I filled this up a few days ago and have let it sit, and there's a couple drops of coolant on the bottom here around this clamp. I don't know if that's maybe just runoff from when I filled it, like some extra got spilled here and just kind of collected and has sat. It could just be because this is an OEM clamp and it doesn't have enough force to really squeeze that hose and the silicone tape we added. So I'm going to clean this off, and once we start it up, I'll check again and see if it's actually leaking and if we need to do something better about this fitting location. So far, all the other coolant fittings seem to be okay. I also mentioned in a previous video I was concerned about the size of the fuel line fitting, whether that was going to be the same diameter and whether that would leak at all. The Immobilizer is not ready yet, but I've turned the key to accessory a couple times to hear the fuel pump prime and haven't seen any leaks, so hopefully that's a good sign. Again, we'll see more of that once we actually start it. Okay, with the radiator mounted up, I also did the wiring harness. So we've got the one that loops down here and runs underneath. So we've got that all the way around, run down to plug into our sensor down here. We've got our cable hooked up as well for the hood release. That's currently mounted in the lowest position, by the way. I wanted to make sure that in the lowest spot I wasn't contacting. That way if I have to raise it up, that's even more space. And if I have to, it can't go any farther down, so there's no worries about having less space. Here's our dash. Yep, basically every light is on right now. We got a bunch of errors coming through on everything, which is to be expected. This car basically went to sleep and woke up with an entirely different set of organs inside it, so we're going to get the Immobilizer done, which is this blinking green light right here. The chip in the key, the code, and the VIN number, the ECUs all need to be linked up so they can securely work together. We are still missing an oxygen sensor, so we'll see how that affects the running. I also haven't put manual transmission fluid in it yet, or the axles. I will do that before we start it. Also, brake fluid is gone because I'm in the middle of getting an RSX brake upgrade. So there's a few things that should take care of themselves once we're done, replacing the wheel speed sensors as well, things like that. Okay, so for starting, if you're using the key, I want to keep my CRZ keys that are registered to this chassis, this VIN, and have them communicate with the Civic ECU. I want to keep the Immobilizer functional, keep that security system active. So one option is to use a high-end scan tool. My friend came by, he's got a really high-end tool that can do Immobilizer resets, SRS, that type of thing. It took like 5 minutes, reprogrammed, matched up the VINs, and now the ignition recognizes this key and any others that were programmed to my CRZ Immobilizer. So that'll work just fine. You can delete or bypass the Immobilizer if you wish. There's products out there, some tuning tools can do it. There's some physical bypasses you can try, forum write-ups, that type of thing. So there's a few options there. If you don't have access to someone with a high-end aftermarket scan tool like Snap-on or something like that, you can also go to a dealer and have them reprogram the ECU and the key, although you will have to take the vehicle to them, so consider that. But what I ended up doing was super fast. It works great. And now the key will crank this engine. I think it is time to start this up for the first time. I am super excited. I am also nervous. I don't know what might go wrong. I think I've done everything right, but okay, I'm super nervous, but at some point you just have to try it, find out what goes wrong, fix it, learn, keep going. Let's do it. That sounded so awesome. Okay, I just ran it for a few seconds. Super exciting to hear it fire up. I don't want to run it for too long for a couple reasons. One, it's still up on jacks, it's still tilted. But now let's take a look around, see if anything broke, if anything leaked, and then we can get this down on the ground and run it for a little bit longer. Okay, for our axles, we're going with Hasport's option. They're made to fit axles. They've got snap rings included on this side, and new axle nuts included on this side, so everything should be good to go there. We'll just pop those into our transmission with a new oil seal and get them mounted in our knuckle. Now, we are using Hasport. You can also go with Insane shafts. I'm sure there's other custom manufacturers out there. But there is another option that was just recently announced. Tony, who is the owner at Tuners, just posted this information on using the Civic Si, knuckles, axles, everything like that. So you can do it with off-the-shelf parts, easier to find, easier to replace. You don't have to have long lead times for custom parts. So if you are considering a swap and you want to go on a budget, go ahead and check out this write-up and information. That could be very useful for you. Going to put these axles in accordance with the service manual. We're going to throw some high-temp grease on the splines here, just a little bit before we mount those in. Okay, so I got my knuckles on here. We have our Hasport axles installed. Suspension's kind of getting bolted back together. I don't have the brakes on yet, but I'll take care of that shortly. I think I'm going to start it up again and let it run a little bit longer, get it hotter, get some higher pressure in the tubes, and just double check again that everything's not leaking. I don't remember how many times I've said it in this video. Maybe I haven't even said it yet, depending on how I edit this, so I'll say it one more time. Check your fluids. Don't forget to do oil, coolant, clutch line. Once your axles are in, make sure you do manual transmission fluid. Of course, to spec with whatever your service manual for the specific engine you're using states. We can also get our trunk put back together now. I decided to reuse a couple of these braces here just to give the chassis a bit more stiffness and also have some support and the mounting spot for the spare tire there in case I decide to haul that around. You can, of course, just leave the whole battery in here if you want and take the wiring out, or even leave the wiring. That's kind of up to you. I ended up just removing a couple 12mm bolts from this upper brace here and taking that off the battery pack, and then this one is the one that went over the top on the cover. So I'm just going to bolt those down real quick and get the rest of our body panels put back in so that the trunk is cleaned up and ready to go. Whatever you end up choosing to do for the trunk, do keep an eye out for any unpatched holes. For example, these bolt holes here that did hold the battery up go all the way through, and I can see light coming through the other side. So whether or not you add anything in, do make sure to seal those up so you don't get water and dust and dirt coming into your vehicle. Okay, trunk mostly back together. Looks a lot better. By the way, because of the reduced weight in the trunk, of course, with no battery, your rear end is going to sit a little bit higher. On my setup, I have 10 coilovers, as low as they'll go. I ended up removing one of the top rings there on the spring perch to drop it down another 1/4 inch or so. And that brought it down to the similar level that it was before I removed the battery, but depending on your suspension setup, just keep that in mind if you want to maintain the same height as you had before the swap. Okay, again, didn't want to run it for too long. I have no exhaust besides the header, so it's just blasting the hottest air right onto my sway bar and steering linkages anyway. But again, just want to try and get it warmed up a little bit, get some pressure, see if there's any leaks. So far, it's not looking like there is, which is great. Let's get down, get our wheels finished up. And get it back on the ground, maybe drive it out of here. Okay, so I got the suspension and brakes finished. Front brakes are bled, kind of. Wheels are back on. I think we're about done here. There's not much else I need to do to wrap this build up. But let's see if we can get it out into the sunlight. So far I've only run the engine, I haven't tried to drive it yet, so we don't know if my clutch job is going to work. We don't know if the axles and transmissions are going to roll without leaking, so that's going to be the next thing to check. That is so loud. As you probably heard there, at idle's really rough. I think I need to do an idle relearn and a throttle body position relearn to get that sorted out. But once I give a little bit of gas and it's in gear rolling, it actually seems like it's pretty smooth, which is great. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a blast to drive. I will say I've got some liquid looking oil down here underneath. Now, when I picked up this engine, it had quite a bit of grime down here and dirt, which I didn't clean off. So I don't know if this is stuff that was already here and warming up the engine just makes it look fresh, or if there's actually an active leak somewhere. So as I keep running it and cycling it here and there, I'll keep an eye on that. I'm going to clean it up now just so it'll be more obvious if there is anything fresh here in the future. Not seeing any fresh oil leaks so far from our gasket jobs. No coolant leaks at all from our jimmy rigged hoses here. Bottom one didn't end up leaking. I think it was just a little bit extra from when I filled it. Fuel line looks like it's doing great. At this point as well, I suppose you could throw the body panels back on. I'm going to leave mine off just because the new ones aren't done and painted yet. And I also don't want to reinstall this cowling and the wipers in case we need extra access for the exhaust. Well, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for this video. I honestly thought there'd be more to talk about, but with the tuner's harness and the Immobilizer reprogram, everything fired up right off the bat. So swap is in and it's working. Next video, as I keep saying, we'll talk about the exhaust some more. We'll go through the custom one I have made and your other options for that. I also need to get the AC wrapped up. I'd love to have that working as usual, so we'll get that done. And then try and troubleshoot and take care of any lights on the dash, as well as maybe getting our Honda set up and getting a tune going. But I've started and run this about half a dozen times so far, driven it around, and still no signs of leaks or anything catastrophically failing. So as far as I can tell, the swap is done and it's working great. Until the next video, if I encounter any problems, of course, I'll make notes so you guys can learn from any mistakes I find out that I made. But that's about all I have for now. Thank you so much for following along in this series. I hope you've enjoyed watching and the info has been helpful for you in your own swap journey. And we'll see you in the next part. Thanks for watching.
Tools and parts laying all around. I got the hood up and the engine on the ground. Lowering the Honda up in the HP. Heart surgery with the K20Z3. Switching motors, tuning tight. Racing fast into the night.